He's back. Eddie's back. Hello, Eddie.
How are you?
This is wonderful. How are you, my friend?
Good, mate.
Great to see you
I feel
again.
like, is this going to be...
Is this a thing now?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the verge of asking for a fee.
Okay, well, I know, it's an appearance.
I didn't know if,
it's a lot.
If you do that.
Well, I see you do interviews with these guys in boxing media like literally every 12 hours.
Yeah.
I go on IFL and you just talk to the guy.
But I say to him like every day.
Yes.
Nothing's changed.
But there's still stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
You still get the views. I didn't want to say anything. I actually beat you in views on one of the days.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that the one with Gareth Davis?
No, it was the one where I was slagging him off. But then the next one I went.
That one was brilliant.
It was good. Yeah.
Really
Enough
good.
of that guy.
Really good.
You don't like him, huh?
I don't mind Gareth Davis.
I thought.
No, I don't mind Gareth Davis.
Okay.
No, I like Gareth Davis, but he's a bit out there, isn't he?
He is a bit out there. Thank you for doing this.
That's all right, mate. I was here for another day.
Yeah, so I thought you'd be in Vegas.
No, I'm going very early tomorrow morning. So we've got the arrivals tomorrow, but I thought, stay in town and do some big media opportunities. Couldn't find them, so we're here. But in all seriousness, great to be back on the show.
It is great to have you.
A great weekend.
Yes. Can you even put into words, like Sunday? What is Sunday like for you after an event like that? Not only, with the fight delivering, but it's MSG. For you personally, how do you even go to bed Saturday night after that?
I mean, you can imagine how the fighters go to sleep. I don't think they do.
Right.
After a fight. I'm probably not the same kind of adrenaline levels because I think that's impossible, but probably quite close. So it's just when you get a good show, that for me gives me a great feeling because that's how I'm judged. Just like if you're, in any job, you're judged on your performance. And when you see people leave MSG and when you go for a coffee on Sunday and people come up to you, and I heard this a few times, that was the greatest night of my life.
Wow.
I mean, that for me is everything because my job is to put smiles on people's faces, to kind of remove them from their daily life and give them an experience in an arena that will create great memories for them and great feelings. And that event, like there was no one in that arena that didn't leave just blown away. So as a promoter, that's the greatest feeling. So it's a mixture of like, I remember when Anthony Joshua beat Vladimir Klitschko and he sort of became a huge star and unified champion. You go to bed and then you're like, can't believe that. And then it's like, right, what happens now? We're going to get a letter on Monday from a governing body telling us we've got a mandatory. This guy's going to try and get him stripped. Okay, then you've got to try and think about the next opponent. What we're going to do? We need a venue, and this was similar with Katie Taylor. It was like, wow, how do we take it to the next level? Because I've got that kind of sick mentality where it's like, a lot of people would look at Saturday and go, it can't get any bigger. But I look at Saturday and say, how does it get bigger? And that, in my mind, starts working literally from the final bell, especially when you get back to the room and you're just sitting there thinking about what's next. And what is next is Canelo Bivol. But walking around yesterday was really special because it's great to hear Irish and people like that, but to hear it from Americans, obviously for someone trying to come into this market and to hear people on the street, New Yorkers, say, wow, been to so many events at the Garden. And that was my second promotion at the Garden main room after AJ against Ruiz, which was another epic night. So maybe there's something in the arena, but you were there. It was just, it delivered. I knew it would be a good fight, but when you get the hype, the platform, everything, the whole eyes of the world watching that, and this is what I've always said about Kate Taylor, I said it on the show, just watch. And that's when you got a great product. You can relax, you can say, just watch. And the card, everything, it's a dream come true.
So many elements that I want to ask you about, but just on a personal note, you just mentioned AJ and Ruiz a couple of years ago. That was a great night, but somewhat of a nightmare for you, right?
Yeah.
So now to leave MSG, second time you're there, I felt a bigger event and you come out on top, so to speak. Your fighter wins. Can you compare the emotions as you were leaving on Saturday as opposed to June 2019?
The lows set you up for the highs. They make the highs feel so much better, but you learn a lot in the lows and the defeat. You learn about yourself. You learn about how you can bounce back. Similar to if you're a fighter, I guess, But winning's everything, and Saturday was, I was very proud of Katie. It was almost like, the ring walk, she chose this song, she's very religious, right? And this was quite a religious song. And I listened to the song, like on the morning and thought, what about you too? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And
did you say this to her? Or you were just
I would
thinking?
never say it to her because she petrifies me. Right. And I listened, but I knew it was important for her. And she said, look, this is something I feel very strongly about. And like, she walked to the ring like a snail, at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I felt like just spiritual. And it was like all the years of dedication, all the years of sacrifices, all the years of no, can't, you know, that it was like that was her moment. She's never done that before. Just walks to the ring normally. But it was like, you know, and what a fight. What a fight. I mean, how she come through the 5th and 6th.
Yes, and we'll get into all that. But I'm curious, when you were watching her, because, you know, the talk going into the fight was, has she lost a step? The last 2 performances, a little lackluster, losing motivation. I don't think motivation was ever in question going into this one because the stakes were so high. But I felt with the walkout, she wasn't just walking out and taking it all in. Her head was high. Like there was an air of confidence. I even tweeted it. Her confidence level was at like plus 10,000. It felt like she was a truly confident person. What were you taking away from her?
I saw that when we made the fight. I was a bit concerned, but I felt it's a true 50-50 fight. Like, and it was, but her last 2 performances, you're quite right. And then I saw clips of her coming back from the videographers and our social guys in our gym, and I thought, she just looks different. And then when I saw her on fight week, her condition, you know, on the scales, everything. I mean, she's a very small 135-pounder. You know, Serrano was tweeting today saying, look, it's the day after the fight, I'm still 134 pounds. I'm not really a lightweight. Katie could make super feather. Like, she's probably 136, 137 today. But she just looked different. And like you said, all week, like that air of confidence and that ring walk, you know, I was almost looking at her going, blimey, she's ready. You know, and she was. She had to be. Because if she was not 100%, she wouldn't have won the fight. And fighters have to understand that conditioning and lifestyle is everything. And she got asked a question at the post-fight press conference, which was, how did you get through round 5 and 6? And it's just conditioning. It's just lifestyle. If you're not conditioned right, if you haven't worked hard enough, if you haven't lived the life, you get stopped in those rounds. Yeah, the fight's over. So to come back, it's about making the weight right. It's about living well out of camp. It's about doing all the right things in camp. And she's the ultimate professional. And fighters need to learn that because you see it all the time, people that haven't lived the life, and it shows.
What are you thinking in the first 3 rounds, 4 rounds? Because I thought maybe Amanda, the moment might get to her. She might start slow. She was hunting her down. I think if memory, I haven't watched it. I can't wait to watch it again, watch the broadcast. I think I gave Amanda the first, and then I gave Katie 2, 3, and 4. I was hearing from people that Mannix on the broadcast had it 3-1 for Amanda.
Yeah, strange. I mean,
what are you thinking?
I thought Katie was in complete control. 4 rounds, I had it 3-1 to Katie. And boxing beautifully, too fast, in and out. Amanda was walking her down, but there's a difference between walking someone down and winning rounds. You know, you can't just win rounds with pressure. It can help in some judges' eyes, but you've got to be landing, you've got to be doing things. So 3-1 for me after 4. And then I said to Katie, what were you doing in the 5th? It's something in Katie Taylor that draws her. Like, she just wants to be in battle, in enemy lines. You know, she wants to be up close, trading. And she decided to sit on the ropes and have some fun with it. You know, and it's like, come on, and catch and counter. And actually, when I watched it back, she was doing it quite nicely. But then she got caught a couple of times. Then she spun off. Then she got caught again. And she was in dire trouble in the 5th and the 6th.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, honestly, I think it's over.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like,
if that's a 3-minute round, she gets stopped maybe.
Maybe. But you know what I keep saying about these 2- and 3-minute rounds? You don't fight in the same way.
It's true.
So you would not, and this is a problem, not a problem, but a discussion point of moving from 2 to 3-minute rounds. It won't be as exciting, I promise you, because 2 minutes, they come out the gate and it's like crash, bang, what, you know, you want to try and win the rounds. It's difficult to do. Over 3, okay, so we've got a longer round here. So would there be more stoppages? Yeah, possibly. But Katie wouldn't put herself in that position over a 3-minute round. So it's hard to say, but certainly another minute of the round wouldn't have gone down very well. In
your mind, in that 5th, you're thinking,
I'm thinking we're in massive trouble. I'm actually thinking, I can't believe this.
Right.
You're in total control of this fight. It's going perfectly. And you've just decided to have a war for no reason at all. And now you're banging trouble. 5th, goes back to the corner. I've never seen her like that before, you know. But I've seen her, I mean, in the Pursoon fight, she was run ragged, but she wasn't hit as hard as she was by Serrano. And Serrano. beautiful punch selection. You know, she'd be upstairs, then she'd slip and hit the body, like good angles as well. I mean, it was really good educated pressure. 6th round, again, like treacherous, but not as bad as the 5th round. And then I'm looking at Katie, she looks tired. And then somehow comes out for the 7th. It was almost like Serrano take a round off, but was clearly tired. And Katie capitalised on that, won the 7th. Actually had her winning like the 8th, the 9th, I think. And the 10th was quite close as well. But when I got in the ring at the end of it, I couldn't really believe how she found her way back from the 5th and 6th. Like, to win the 7th, that just gave her the momentum and that respite to go again in the 8th and 9th. And the 10th was epic. I mean, but, you know, she was so tired, her knees dipped a little bit in the last sort of 10 seconds. And I thought it was 6-4, you know, 6-4 for me. But at 6-4, a draw's no problem.
Right.
You know, and 7-3 is no problem. But
there was no way you thought she lost.
No.
They seemed very adamant.
Yeah, we were. But at 6-4, you can lose.
Sure.
You can lose 6-4. Doesn't mean it's a bad decision. It's just someone sees something a little bit differently. I think one judge had it 7-3, one had it 6-4, and one had it 6-4 to Amanda.
To Amanda.
Yeah. I don't see how Amanda Serrano won 6 rounds in that fight, but you know, there was a lot of close rounds and over 2 minutes. One judge, the judge who gave it 96-93, I think, to Taylor, had it a 10-8 round in the 5th. Which
you agree with that?
No, probably. I mean, I always think a 10-8 should come from a knockdown, personally.
Right.
But, you know, and it was really only the last 40 seconds of the round, 30 seconds. But, you know, she was seriously under fire. She wasn't very happy with a 10-8 round, Katie. But, you know, she just came back.
Has she ever had a 10-8 against her?
No.
Wow.
No.
That is incredible.
No.
You know, one thing that was really fun about it all was, and we'll get into the Jake stuff in a second, but if you're co-promoting with someone, let's say you're co-promoting with Aram, or, you know, I know that you and Frank aren't the best of friends, but even if you're co-promoting with anyone, I would gather you're not sitting next to that guy. Those shots of you two kind of cheering and being cordial and fun, but like at this point, you don't have to be unbiased anymore. You are clearly rooting for your fighter. That was brilliant stuff. Whoever's idea was it to have you two sit next to each other?
We were supposed to sit on the promoter's row.
Okay.
Right? But in America, it's quite strange. You sit behind the barrier, right? In England, you don't have a barrier. You just have the ring, and then you have seats. So I sit in the corral all night because I want to be as close as possible to the action. But I'd agreed with MVP that we'd sit on that row for the main event. And then when we were walking there, I said to Jake, do you want to just sit here? Like, he was with his mum, his girlfriend, and he said, yeah. So we just sat next to each other. And I had a bit of back and forth with Jake. Like, I don't think he liked my comments on our stuff about him being an average fighter, which again, I stand by. Like, that's still quite complimentary, I feel, although it's now become a meme. He loves boxing. And I don't have a problem with him being involved with boxing because he genuinely has a passion for it. So can he be a little bit of a, you know, I joke with him, a plonker, as we say in England sometimes? Yeah, so can I. But he does love the sport. And anyone that loves the sport, like or hate them, you know, I feel that because I have a passion for it as well. So when you see him jumping up and down, and we were both, like, we were in pieces.
Great.
You know, but it was never like, and it was quite respectful. You know, I'd say, what do you think about that round? What do you think about that round? And he's not an idiot. He knows, you know, I mean, all the stuff about the robbery and stuff like that, that's to get people talking and just to create interest. He knows. I said to him after 4 rounds, I think it's like all square, after 8 rounds, you know, or something like that. So, and it could have been a draw. So, but I enjoyed it. I thought he was a massive asset to the promotion. No one from either side, the broadcaster, anybody could have done any more to make that any bigger than it was. And in anything in life, when you walk away at the end of something and say, I couldn't have done any more, that's a great feeling because you can look yourself in the mirror, and he was great for the promotion, and I believe we'll do it again.
What do you think of his outfit?
Strange. I didn't know it's like a holster or something, you know.
I like you're wearing the traditional tux.
Yeah, he had
got the millennial tux going on. Like, everything about it was perfect. You've had some big nights, some big moments. Is that #1 for you as a promoter?
Yeah, I mean, so many events and for so many different reasons, like AJ Klitschko, like even back to Carl Froch against George Groves at Wembley, 80,000. It was like, God knows how long ago that was now. It's 7, 8 years ago. That was like my first big breakthrough event. So that was important to me. AJ against Klitschko, just probably the greatest fight in British boxing history, and very close with AJ. Canelo against Billy Joe Saunders, breaking the record at Dallas Cowboys, felt like a breakthrough moment. Even AJ against Ruiz, like for different reasons, I will always remember. And you know, Saturday night, that was more pleasing because no one thought it was possible. So that was years of people telling you you're wasting your time, or this isn't actually as big as you think it is, and no one's interested. And when you believe in something, you keep going. You know, you keep rolling your sleeves up and saying, I believe in it. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. It's like anyone who has a product, it's exactly the same. You know, you get turned away, the distributors don't want it, you know, you're getting bad feedback from the customer, but you believe in the product. So you keep working, you keep working, you keep working, and you think one day we'll get there. And Saturday, we got there. And it changed everything. Like even Franchon Cruz Dezern against Cederos, undisputed. Amazing fight, amazing. Like the two best, I mean, Liam Smith, Jesse Vargas was also a great fight, but, you know, it's now, I think female fighters wake up on Monday. The managers are probably going to be calling me this afternoon asking for more money, but so good for them. And it's just showing them that what a massive opportunity for them. I didn't feel like women's boxing really needed a shot in the arm, but it got a huge shot in the arm because so many people viewed that. And I think DAZN will release some viewership numbers, but it was massive.
Any idea how it did?
Huge. One of the biggest viewed fights ever on DAZN. And, and I think, you know, in terms of subscriptions, in terms of viewership.
More than you expected?
Yes, yeah. US, UK, huge numbers, you know, obviously with the two main markets, but globally as well. And, you know, in terms of media-wise, DAZN did such a great job, and Fred Meller, I think, sitting in your room somewhere. The numbers, you know, in terms of the media analysis, right up there. I think even eclipse sort of Canelo against Saunders and those kind of levels. So now we have to go again this week. You know, it's like, you talk about the come down. Well, that was a little bit like that.
You're not exhausted? Huh? You're not exhausted?
Yeah, but then how can you be exhausted when you're about to promote the pound for pound #1 this week and fly to Las Vegas? I mean, you just have to get a little bit of spring set. That's why I chose just today to stay in New York and just relax, go to the gym later, land tomorrow, fighter arrivals, straight back into it. And again, I go back to, I know it's cheesy with people like Canelo, but just the energy, you know, arriving at MGM foyer with the ring in the middle, the Maharachi band. It's like it's a dream come true.
On Wednesday, I was taking questions and a fan wrote to me. So back when it was Mayweather-McGregor in 2017 at the post-fight press conference, I asked Leonard Ellerby, why were there sections that were completely empty? Like, there were literally sections that were empty at T-Mobile. And this fan brought it up. He said, make sure you ask Eddie and Jake why there were empty sections after this fight. I looked around. There were no empty sections. No. There were hardly any empty seats. Yeah. And so the official word is a sellout, 19,000 plus. Does that blow your mind?
Yeah, 19,100. Yeah. The only seats that were available were, we had a small section for sort of additional media that weren't on the floor. And there might have been, you know, you do get people that don't turn up, by the way. Sure. Like if you've bought a ticket and then you're flying in and your flight got cancelled or you got COVID or I don't know. Right. But you could see there was hardly a seat in the house. And that was great. You know, when MSG posted yesterday saying over 19,000 in attendance. Because you know what, Ariel, as well? It's like this week with Canelo. I don't know how many tickets we've got left. A couple of hundred, right? 400 or 500. Of the expensive ones dotted about everywhere. It's like there's such a kind of like pollution of people in the industry where they start posting things on social media or getting people to post. Oh, look, have you seen here? There's a few hundred tickets. Yes, and like Taylor Serrano, there were literally people posting going, they haven't sold what they've said they've sold. You know, we sold over 1,000 tickets on Saturday for that show. Wow. On the day of the fight. You know, probably 800 on the Friday. Probably like 4,000, 3,000 or 4,000 from Monday to Saturday night. You know, and we got to like, I don't know, 14,000 on Fight Week. Oh, there's still 4,000 left. It's like, they'll go. Chill out. Oh, yeah. Nah, he's saying it's going to sell out. It won't sell out. It's like, why are you even bothered? What are you doing in your life to really get on social media and worry about this, you sad individual.
Yes. Thank you for
You
saying
know
that.
who you are.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of those people online. A lot of them. Was there any chance if Katie loses that fight that she retired?
No.
No chance.
Some people are saying to me now, what a great way for her to go out. Honestly, if you said that to Katie Taylor, she'd be very disappointed. Like, she'd go,
offended.
She'd go, I think that was my best performance. You know, it's like what it was. But, and again, it goes back to what is important in your life. If you love what you do, why would you take that away from someone? Of course, you want to remain healthy and all these things. And she's I mean, she lives the perfect life of a fighter. But she also feels like she's pretty much still in her prime. And she'd be devastated to lose boxing from her life. And the rematch, you know, I mean, we'll have to see whether we can reach a deal with those guys for the rematch. And I'm sure we can, because it's still the biggest fight for both.
Right.
But
there's no one else right now that would even come close.
I mean, look, we keep talking about, do you look at a crossover fight, you know, of an MMA fighter? Maybe one of the past. You know, I mean, Cyborg was there.
Yes.
Right? I spoke to her.
She's coming in today.
She wants the Taylor fight.
You know, there's someone else that really wants it as well.
Hearn?
Yeah, she's also on the show today.
But we've talked, you know,
you've talked to her a little bit in the past.
Some of Katie's management team have talked to Holly Holm.
Do you have interest in that?
Yeah, I mean, Holly Holm can box.
Right.
You know, it's not like she's
going to the Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah, exactly. So it's different. You know, but I think there's no one really in boxing right now. I mean, you've got Chantel Cameron's a unified champion at 140. She's from the UK. She's going to be undisputed at some point. She's good, but we've got to get her profile to the same kind of levels. Jessica McCaskill, undisputed at 147. Katie beat her previously, another great fighter. But how do you match the magnitude of Saturday? And I guess a Cyborg or a Holly Holm can do that, but it's going to be very difficult to avoid the draw, the demand for Taylor Serrano too.
No, it has to be the rematch.
Yeah, and
it has to be.
And Katie's like, I mean, you never get Katie say no. You know,
I was actually surprised that she was so open about it right off the jump.
Anyway, normally people aren't. Especially, she didn't like some of the things that Jake Paul said.
Like what?
Like, I think Jake Paul put a tweet out saying, you know, Katie, you and your team are all talk and all this kind of stuff. And
in the build-up?
On the day of the fight, I think he posted, because Katie came out, the media said to Katie, look, Jake Paul said this and said this, and Katie said, he's not a fighter. He's never been in a fight. He'll never be in a fight of this magnitude. So basically, he has no right to comment on me. And then he came out and said, you're all talk, you're this, you're that. I mean, just for the promotion, but she's not a fan.
She doesn't play like that. Yeah.
So I wouldn't have, you know, been offended if she said, no, I'm done with him. But she's not like that. She's like, well, what a great fight. Let's do it again. And that's quite refreshing.
Absolutely. And you said afterwards, MSG people came up to you.
Straight away. I mean, look, you've got Croke Park in Ireland. She's never fought in Ireland, right?
Why is that?
Just because there's been sort of political problems within boxing and stuff like that. And we haven't done shows there. There hasn't been a lot of boxing, and it's a lot of sort of aggravation and hoops to jump through. And really, she was doing so well in England and the US that we just kept on going. But every time we fight, you see the same comments. Like, this is Ireland's greatest ever fighter, maybe their greatest ever sports star. How can she not fight in Ireland? And you would do 60,000 at Croke Park, and it would be the most stunning night like you've never seen. And she deserves it so much. On the flip side, MSG come back and said, guys, you have to bring the rematch back here. And there was something to be said about the Puerto Rican and Irish, wasn't it? I mean, it was almost like the Irish was slightly louder, but it was very close. And that added so much, in my opinion, to the event itself. And I'm not sure you'd get the same amount of Puerto Ricans flying to Ireland, but it'd be nice. And then, you know, we've had a couple of calls from the Middle East to say...
Already?
Yeah, to say, look, you know, there's a big movement in the Middle East right now. You know, we did Joshua Ruiz in Saudi Arabia. We're talking to a number of other countries as well. They want to make certainly a medium-term commitment to boxing. So they're looking at the mega fights of boxing, and Taylor Serrano. Like, if you turn around now and said, what are the 4 or 5 big mega fights in boxing? You'd have to put Taylor Serrano too. With all of those, with Canelo Triple G, with AJ against Fury, with, you know, so that's right on their list, and that would be groundbreaking within itself. So, but for me, to take Katie back to Ireland in front of 60,000 people at Croke Park, like that would be.
So that'd be your top choice?
I think so, yeah. But, you know, and I think it would be Katie's.
So there's two things I want to ask you about Croke Park. Number one, I was always told, because, you know, Conor wanted to fight there too, Conor McGregor, that there's a curfew. So it has to end at a certain time, right?
Normally, I mean, the problem with doing a UK fight for a US audience is the US broadcaster will always want you to go as late as possible.
Right.
So, but we would be able to go probably at 9 or 10 o'clock local time. But the problem with that is it brings in sort of 2, 3 p.m. Eastern time event on US, which traditionally doesn't do as well.
Right.
But, you know, with the Zones Global platform, there's as much focus in the UK as there is on the US. So it would be okay.
Another thing that was brought up to me, and I know this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you, but you sort of just alluded to it, this Daniel Kinahan situation. How big of a problem or how big of an issue, how many obstacles would be in your way to do, like, is it possible that boxing could be momentarily dead in Ireland? Like no one's going to be allowed to do events there?
For a long time, you know. So
can't do anything.
No, there just hasn't been a big event or people willing to.
There was that incident a couple of years ago,
So, you know, I think that it's slowly, I guess, and we'll have to see, really speak to relevant people there and see if everyone's comfortable for a big show. But we'd like to do it, and I think it would be a shame to go through Katie's entire career with not fighting in Ireland. I think one day we'd look back and kick ourselves because we've never done a show of any magnitude, really. You know, my dad did Eubank, Steve Collins in Cork, you know, probably, I don't know, 25 years ago now. But as a business, we've never done it. And it was really nice to give Katie, or not give her, she got it, but be a part of delivering that for Katie on Saturday because she deserves it more than anyone. I mean, you couldn't meet a nicer individual. Like, you couldn't meet someone that's more dedicated to the sport, who deserved it more after all the years of sacrifice. And that's why I said the ring walk was so special, because it was like, you know, and I posted on Saturday, I said, you've paved the way for so many others, but tonight is all about you. And she struggles with that, you know. She's so selfless. She would never say, tonight is all about me. She would say, no, tonight is all about showing people anything's possible and inspiring the next generation. I'm saying it is, but please, this is you. This is everything you've worked for. This is your moment. And that was really rewarding. And we'd get that at Croke Park as well, that same kind of feeling.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever met a fighter who's so wholesome, pure, who doesn't, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here. I feel like she doesn't have a single skeleton in her closet, right?
No.
Have you ever met someone quite like her, where she's just so pure?
That was when I first met her. She fascinated me. She inspired me. Like, I was left almost dumbfounded. I remember we had the meeting with her and Brian, and then we went for lunch. And I sort of spent the next day or so just thinking about her and that conversation. And I was like, you know, I told you before on here, I said, what? Tell me about you. She's like, well, what do you want to know? I said, well, tell me about your life. Like, what do you care about? What do you love? And she's like, you know, boxing and my faith, really, and obviously my family. And when you're working for a fighter, to know that they're going to give everything, you know, to know that they're not going to sort of, you know, skip sessions or on their off season go out and you've got to worry about them and doing that, and do they really want it, and what, it's just, I don't even have to, like I said the other day, Katie's probably, she's like, she's the closest fighter to me that I don't actually spend time with. If that makes sense. You know, some of them you're with all the time and you're very close to, but you don't need to be around. She doesn't want you around. Like, if I pop to the gym, okay, nice, but she doesn't really, like, it's fine, you know. And we've got that relationship where she's just, you know, we've given her all the opportunities, but she's done so much for me and us, and I think the sport. And she's amazing to work with, amazing. Because
what a dream for you, right? Because she's probably not too, like, needy.
She's not needy,
or
but
jealous.
She's also turned down millions of dollars in sponsorship.
Really?
And appearances.
Why?
Millions. Because she's not about that. She doesn't believe, if she doesn't believe in something, she would never, like, you'd never, can you imagine Katie sitting there doing an advert for a brand that, it's just, that's not her. You know, we've gone to her so many times. I mean, sports betting, you know, that she's not a huge supporter of, for example. Which is why my bet with Jake Paul probably didn't go down too well.
Okay.
But on a serious note, she would say, no, not for me. And it's like, yeah, but can I just tell you about the deal here? No, I don't need to hear about it.
Wow.
It's like, but, you know, or an appearance. Oh, no. What have I got to do? Oh, you've got to turn up and, you know, do a few photos and spit. No. It's like, but I learned that many years ago.
Right.
And now I don't even bother, in all honesty. She has a tiny number of sponsors that, and every deal that you do, you're very honest and say, she's not really going to do that much. Anything that takes her away from her training, anything that affects her preparation, absolutely not. She'd rather not do it. So, you know, but you get your head around that quite early doors with her. But the one thing I'll say about her, she embraced the media build-up to this fight more than I've ever seen. And she really enjoyed it because she got pulled everywhere in the promotion to this fight. But she was really proud of the attention of this fight, I think, and was fantastic.
So you alluded to the bet on Thursday. Who called you guys to tell you can't do this?
I spoke to Sean Palmer, who's our sort of chief head of counsel. And when I came off the stage, he was like, you know, sort of, it's not a great look. It's very sort of grey area of a promoter betting on a fight that he's promoting.
Right.
You know, in terms of integrity, it doesn't look great and blah, blah, blah. So we spoke to Nikisa and Jake and they were like, yeah, okay, well, what do you want to do? It's like, well, we can't really do the bet, I think, but do you want to come up with something different? And we sort of kicked through a few ideas. We didn't actually finalise anything, but I think the last thing was, if Katie lost, I would have to go and spar with Jake.
Wow.
And we'd probably stream it, maybe even for charity or something like that, and, you know, have and if we won, then I would send someone to spar Jake.
Okay.
Which we'll see. We'll see if there's
still a person in mind.
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, I was going to send you.
Yeah, I'd be down.
Tony Bellew would be a good one.
I saw Tony. I saw, and
I mean, the problem with Jake is that he's now in a world where it's like strike on sight world. Do you understand what I mean by that? So if you say something to someone that's offensive or disrespectful, in this world, it's not a conversation, it's strike on sight. So if he said something to Tony Bellew about Tony Bellew that was disrespectful, particularly to his family or anything like that, there's no conversation. He will iron him out on sight.
Well, I saw Tony right after he crossed paths with him, and it looked like his eyes were.
Well, he was, yeah, but sort of Jake came up to him. I think he couldn't see him, and he sort of went, "Oh, hi," you know, and he was quite respectful. But he never said anything that was. But you know, like Jake said stuff about Conor, and when I've heard it, I was
McGregor,
like,
you're talking about his family, yeah.
I was like,
yeah, it's a lot,
and it's a different world. This isn't YouTube or Disney, where you can get away with saying basically whatever you want. This is strike on sight world, and there'll be no conversations. There'll be no mediations with the wrong person. But that's the game he's playing, you know, and he's pushed that game very hard with a lot of people. And listen, it's working for him. And I still, you know, I still like Conor McGregor against Jake Paul. I've got to say, I mean, I know there's a bit of a weight, but Conor's looking big these days.
Yes.
But
who do you think wins that in a boxing match?
I don't want to disrespect Conor because I really like him, but it's the size is the problem, you know? And again, when I said Jake was like, he can fight. He's quite explosive, can punch a little bit. But Conor is, a lot of people don't know, Conor was a decent amateur fighter. He does have good boxing fundamentals, like much better than most mixed martial artists. His boxing is much better. And even in the Mayweather fight, I know that Mayweather was holding him up really for most of that fight. But he was competitive enough. It certainly wasn't embarrassing. And he fought the pound for pound #1 at the time. So Conor can box, but really he's what is he, 147 pounder? Really? Conor, I mean, I know 147, 154. I know he's, you know, pumped up right now.
He's gone all the way up to 70.
Yeah, but, you know, Jake's at 200 or whatever he is,
he's
and he's probably 220 right now. So, but I don't, you know, I'd like to see it.
Could you imagine same card, Katie Amanda 2?
Nikisa mentioned it to me. You know,
really?
He said, look, what about Taylor Serrano and Conor McGregor against Jake Paul, same night. You know, I think they're almost, obviously Jake's huge, and so is Taylor Serrano. It's probably better on over 2 cards, but it's a hell of a night. But I just can't see Conor and, you know, ultimately Dana.
That's the one.
I mean, Dana's really not going to do a deal with Jake Paul.
No, he's not.
You know?
Well, and Nikisa as well.
Yeah.
They have a history.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
That would be insane. I think that gets over 2 million pay-per-views.
Oh, yeah. And some.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. So, all right. So you and Jake, you're cool now because
always cool.
The thing,
yeah, he wasn't
happy on Thursday.
No,
yes.
on our head.
Yes, and that thing blew up.
The problem is, I won't be disrespectful, but at the same time, I'm not gonna brown nose him, as we call, because I'm just gonna be honest. And I didn't feel that, like, there are so many fighters out there that I would say are average. Like, that's not poor, that's not good. It's in the middle. So I'm saying that you're an average professional fighter. That's a massive compliment. But he didn't, you know, this is a guy who he would say to me off camera, in 2 years, I will beat Canelo. And I'll sort of look around for a camera and realise there isn't one. And I think, wow.
Do you think he believes that?
Yeah. I think he's so deluded. So deluded. But that delusion and that confidence will actually help him in the ring, because he does genuinely go in there think he's a world-class fighter. It'll get him knocked out eventually, but it will, I think people sort of get a little bit baffled by his confidence, and it's not fake confidence. He actually genuinely thinks that he is a world-class fighter. But you know, like when he said, I've been sparring these top 5 cruiserweights, you know, I've never heard of them. And I know every fighter in the world.
Right.
He said, they're the top 5 cruiserweights in the world. I said, well, there's 4 world champions, and then they're not them. So, but I think did he announce yesterday he's fighting August 13th?
August 13th, but no opponent.
Yeah. I think he's great.
You think he beats Tommy Fury?
Probably, yeah. But that's what I said. Like, Tommy Fury's average. An average fighter. It's not terrible. He's not any good. He's average. But I don't mean that as disrespect. There's a lot of average people in a chosen profession. You've still got to be a certain level to even be in there.
First time you met him, you didn't even think he was average.
Terrible. That's what I said.
Yes.
But when he boxed Anderson Kidd, it was, I mean, to be fair to him, he did knock him out in a round.
Sure.
But it was, you could tell it wasn't. But he's massively improved. Massively improved. But I'm excited to see what he's going to do next. I think he's very exciting. He brought a huge amount of eyeballs to Taylor Serrano. I think he's an engaging character. And I think he can fight a little bit.
So the next time, so he's still with Amanda, so you'd have to work with him again. And that was all good, right?
Brilliant.
Is this the easiest co-promotion you've ever had? Because it felt like good vibes the whole time.
I think, again, when we go back to that sort of disease of the industry,
right?
People, like, you could do a co-promotion with someone and they almost want it to fail.
Right.
Because you're involved. It's weird. Boxing's a weird business. Really weird. Like, they'll freeze you out where on something that could make the event so much bigger and make them so much more money, but you're not involved, and that's beautiful. You know, like when Canelo boxed Caleb Plant, they wouldn't let me in anywhere. You know, when I went to the weigh-in for the PBC event.
What do you mean, they're stopping you at the door?
I mean, well, no credentials, and to the point where for the weigh-in, obviously Canelo gave me my accreditation, went to the weigh-in, and next thing I've got like a security guard here, and I know what's going on, and I know they're just basically saying, don't let him get backstage, don't let him get, you know.
What do they think you're going to do?
Nothing, but it's a freeze out. So it's anything to stop him.
Were you frozen out of Fury White?
I didn't really choose to try and attend. I mean,
you weren't welcome there either.
I wouldn't have been no, certainly not. I mean, if I tried to get in the change room or anything like that, no chance.
No chance.
No chance. But also, not really with Bob, because I think, you know, I've been to top rank shows, stuff like that. But I remember Canelo Plant, so funny. I was in me and Stephen Espinosa don't really have the best relationship. You know, he had Anthony Joshua. I took him to DAZN, a bit with HBO at the time. And I was in the Hennessy Lounge for the Canelo Plant fight. And I saw Stephen. And I thought, I'll just go and say hello. And I went over to him. I went, Stephen, how are you? And he went and walked off and wouldn't shake my hand. And I just thought, I just thought back to Conor McGregor, you know, at the Mayweather presser. And I was like, yeah. But that's like, the pettiness of that is unreal. But that's what exists in the business. It's frightening. And the great thing about Most Valuable Promotions, working with them was, there was a few difficult moments. You know, I probably had a moan up about Nikisa, he would have had a moan up about me, but they genuinely want the event to be a huge success. So, and that's just common sense. And therefore, we all did a great job, pushed it as hard as we can. And don't forget, Jake spent a lot of time pushing that show. You know, he's got a big audience and he brought massive value to it. But these industries are really diseased through sort of the guilt and sort of aggravation that boxing and brings to you, that it's fascinating. That's why I look at PBC, I look at Al Heyman, just will do anything not to do a fight. You know, and everything's about only if you do this. Now you look at like Crawford Spence now, the only way that fight's really going to happen is if Errol Spence turns around to PBC and Al Heyman and says, make that fight, right? No other fights, make that fight now. Or if Errol Spence has to sign Terence Crawford has to sign a long-term deal with PBC, well, they don't get the fight. Now, when we did the Undisputed Road with Canelo Alvarez, he went Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, and there was one left, Caleb Plant. And it was like game of chess. So we made an offer to Caleb Plant. They would never, ever have let Plant fight on DAZN. So Canelo went, okay, I'll go over there, take the belt, come back. And that's a problem with boxing.
Well, if Amanda was still with Lou DiBella, does this fight happen?
I think that relationship was very fractured over the years and it wasn't necessarily Lou's fault because there just wasn't a market for women's boxing. And Lou was a believer in women's boxing, and he's done he was a part of what happened on Saturday because he's been a long-term campaigner for that. But it seemed like Jordan Maldonado and Amanda, they never really trusted or believed in him enough. And I feel a bit sorry for Lou because he'd done a lot of work with Amanda over the years, but obviously she left him, went to Jake Paul. Jake come in, raised her profile straight away, championed her, and ultimately doubled her pay packet for that fight. He got her twice as much as Lou DiBella could have got for that fight. That's the reality. And he got that because of the increase in profile that he gave to Amanda, but also the value that he brought to the event for DAZN. So, when we pitched the fight to DAZN and told him it's going to cost this much, Jake Paul's involvement probably got that over the line. So, see what Amanda and Jordan's relationship's like with Jake and Nikisa moving forward. Maybe they fall out. I don't know. That's just boxing. And I always think that personal relationships and trust is everything. And that's the relationship we've got with Katie, which is, Eddie, I trust you 100%. And Brian, Peter's our manager, we trust Eddie, you do your job. And we'll argue, we'll negotiate now and again, but trust is everything, especially in the fight game. Because it's it's a horrible world. But, sometimes when a fighter believes in you, it's a great feeling, and you give them everything back.
After a night like Saturday, do you hear from your father? And if so, what'd he say?
Straight away. He watched the whole fight, every fight. And it's like...
Stayed up till 3 a.m.?
He started, I think it was like 9:30 p.m. UK for before the bell, and then 3:30. And he's like, I'm getting texts every night, every fight. Right. Oh, I like him, he was good. No, it weren't very good. Oh, what? And then, all of a sudden, this is a good fight. It's like, Dad, leave it, And then the next day, it's quite a painful phone call on the Sunday because he wants to talk about literally every fight. Okay. And when you talked out, you've done the media.
Yes, yes.
That kid, that 6-rounder, he was good. And I like the way he did that. And I was, but he just said, one of the greatest things he's ever seen.
Wow.
And he's living his life through boxing. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame promoter. But when he stepped back from boxing, now he just lives it through me. So he sits at home watching these shows thinking, wow, that's my boy. That's Matchroom.
That's got to feel good for you,
amazing.
Right?
Of course, because the family business is everything to
right.
us. So, and that's the legacy that I take forward. But for him, and he had those same arguments, those same fractured relationships with everyone. So it's almost like, that's my boy, go and sock it to him, and he'll say to me, don't take any shit off these people. Go and smash them to pieces, all of them. And I might say to him, PBC or Espinosa, you know, which, yeah, that's why, because they're petrified of you, son. That's why. And, you know, he's a good little cheerleader for me as well, because sometimes, you know, when, especially in America, when everyone's against you, not you, but the industry, it can get a little bit, you know, you can start thinking, oh, dear, I might just go back to the UK and just sort of dominate over there, because this is a bit, but actually with me, sickly goes the other way. And when I see them do that to me, I just think, I'm going to crush you. Whether it takes a month or a year or 10 years, I'm going to crush you.
You feel like you're number one right now? Like there's not even a close second?
I think it's a 3-horse race with Matchroom, PBC and Top Rank. You know, these are very, I mean, Top Rank particularly, very good promotional company with a very good broadcaster that have a huge tradition in sports, right? But none of...
You watched their show on Saturday, by the way.
I haven't watched it, no. But Shakur Stevenson is an outstanding fighter. But they know how to, you know, we're quite similar in terms of the mechanics of promotion, you know, branding, product value, like brand profile, all this kind of stuff, social, we're quite similar. And PBC, aggressive. But I look at these businesses, Ariel, and I think, you know, and in the UK, you have to post your accounts. So anyone can look at any company, any limited company's accounts in the UK. It's strange. But you can't, that doesn't exist in the US. And I look at these businesses and I wonder about the long-term sustainability or the underlying sort of value of these companies, because I look at some shows they do. I know every number of every show we do down to a T. And I look at some of these pay-per-views and I think, how have you done that without hemorrhaging millions and millions of dollars? And some of that comes through investment, you know, that these companies have done. And that's why I just say, I know that long term, the way we run our business, the way we operate, we're unbeatable. But again, it's time. So when we came 3 years ago, no one, we weren't even here. You know, we came into the market, it was very difficult. Now, already, we're top 3 and we're battling out with the big boys. But if you're going to really, if you're going to listen, I mean, you won't hear from Al Heyman because he doesn't speak. But if you're looking at it now and you're saying Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, Al Heyman PBC, and Bob Arum and Top Rank. Bob Arum is 90 years old, legend of the sport. Who are you backing? Who are you backing? Who's your money on over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years? You know, I know where my money would be.
I'll never understand the Heyman not speaking thing, because to me, like, you need, like, this is part of the magic of...
The biggest problem the PBC have is a lack of spokesman.
They have no face.
There is a real mindset in the sport. People don't like... Al Heyman hates promoters, right? He hates someone to be the figurehead, the spokesperson, the face.
You need that.
You need the face. Yeah. I'm the mouth, right? I'm out there 24/7. Good stuff, bad stuff, controversial stuff, but stuff all the time. And you can't, as a fighter, as an event, you can't rely on the fighter to continuously be part of this machine. Dana White, you know, the success of the UFC comes from the figurehead.
That's the brilliance, yeah.
And that's the person. And also, at the same time, it increases the value of your own business and brand, where you don't necessarily need to rely on talent all the time. Of course, if you have the best stable, you're in the greatest position. But that's the thing with the PBC. You know, they employ ultimately, or work with, smaller promoters that they think aren't dangerous. You know, they're not a threat. They're very happy to be in that position. And nice people, by the way, I don't mean, but they're never going to be standing up in front of the media holding court, you know, getting fighters head to head. And you know, that's you have to be a face, a name. And who is going to be that face and name to take boxing forward in America? I don't see them. I don't see these emerging promoters coming out, the ones that are reliable, the ones that won't flake off for a month and go to, I don't know, somewhere else and think, oh, I can't do this anymore. Where's the ones 24/7, 7 days a week that are there and not going anywhere? And as I say, Arum is a brilliant, like you can't knock Bob Arum. He's 90 years old. Where's the future of that business? Who's going to pick up the mantle and be the next Bob Arum? So and people might listen to this and think, "Cool, he's arrogant," but I'm just telling you that if you have any brain, if you have any common sense, what is the future of boxing in America? And it's us. That's how I feel. Whether that's a Jake Paul delusion or whether that's just me being egotistical, I don't think no one can live with me in terms of the passion and energy that I've got and the time. And I've got time. I want to do it forever, but I've got a lot of time.
We had the nice chat about balancing work and family. I saw this great piece, I'm sure you saw it as well, in The Guardian, and they showed the photo of you as, I think, a 10-year-old standing behind you. You're in the exact same room, and they did this thing. You saw this thing that they did? It's amazing. Same phone as well, same red phone. And I read what your father said, and of course I know who your father is and what he's done in his legacy. But when I was reading it, I was like, now it all makes sense. Everything he said of himself, I was a bad father. I was not there. And it was like almost the exact, I can see why you're able to be at terms, at peace with the lifestyle that you have, because that's the lifestyle your dad had.
Yeah, I mean, for me growing up, like he never felt like a bad, and he was a good father. You know, when he was around, he would give me 100% all the time and actually go beyond, trying to make up for not being there. And the same thing with me. And I'm away now for 2.5 weeks or whatever it is. So when I go back, you know, I'm missing my kids dearly. But it's a sacrifice. And I hope they will understand. They will understand because they understand what the business means to us as a family. If you have Sunday lunch with our family, we get told off 30 times, me and my dad, every Sunday lunch. We can't stop talking about business. But it's not really business for us. It's sport. And it's life. So where you might, you might have a conversation debating about an MMA fight, I'm having a conversation debating with him what's right and wrong about one of the sports that we're promoting or whatever it is. And my mum will say, "Will you stop?" Right? She's lived a life of 40 years of this, but it's not going anywhere. So you got to, and again, our deep conversation last week, it all comes down to how much you want it. How much do you want it? What sacrifices are you prepared to make? And I want it so bad. Like nights like Saturday, how can you even compare anything business related or life related to that experience on Saturday? Family's everything. Business close second. That's our famous saying. We're in the family. But
I think you have that in your bio.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But he didn't have mobile phones back then. You do. So it's harder for you.
True.
Like you say, he gave you 100%. He was able to give you 100% because no one was interrupting.
We didn't have mobile phones because, like you say, he'd get home.
Yeah.
And we'd go play football, play cricket, whatever it was.
It's impossible.
Now it's like, oh, jeez.
You find that you're addicted to it.
Park.
I saw you in the ring, Eddie. I saw you in the ring. You were on your phone.
Yeah, but that's more of a social media reaction.
Okay.
I'm over the park, I'll be on the swings and I'll be like this.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
I know, but it's like you never want to take your finger off the pulse.
I know.
So, and if you want to be the very best, that's the lifestyle you got to lead. It goes back to the fighters. If you want to be the best, if you want to be the greatest, you have to make the sacrifices that when you walk through those ropes, you couldn't have done any more. That's the greatest feeling in the world. And when we started that show on Saturday, that's exactly how I felt. Well, have a good show, everyone. Let's be honest. Could we have done any more? No. The Man in the Glass, read the poem. Greatest poem ever. It's about looking yourself in the mirror in the eyes and knowing I couldn't have done any more. And that's what life's all about.
So as we wrap this up, this is tremendous stuff. I appreciate the time. I'll let you go in a couple of minutes. So we look ahead now. Rematch is what you want. You'd like for it to be in Ireland if you had your way. How soon could it happen?
I mean,
she was beat up. Is she okay, by the way?
Yeah, I looked at Katie in the change room. I thought she broke her jaw. She had quite a lot of swelling around here, but she got scanned yesterday, and she's okay. So
all good.
Yeah, all good.
No breaks, no nothing. No. Amanda, do you know, to the best of your knowledge?
Look, I saw a video of her, a bit bashed up. But
Okay. So realistically,
where are we now? We're coming up with May. So June, July, August. The problem is to go Croke Park, you really have to go.
Because it gets cold, right?
Yeah, end of August at kind of like the latest first week of September's pushing it. So
that's too soon.
It's quite a fast turnaround. I mean, for a fight end of August, you got to start training in June, beginning of June. You got a month. It's not ideal.
Yeah.
Not ideal. But also, if it was the difference for Katie between fighting at Croke Park and not fighting at Croke Park, then, we'll look at it. But I think when you get to that level, a lot of people talk about activity. Fighters, a lot of top fighters outside of Canelo Alvarez really aren't active enough. It's a conversation I have with AJ quite a lot. The bigger names tend to only fight twice a year. It's not that active, especially if you have a fight that might only go a few rounds. So, but Katie's kind of at that stage now where she will only have 2 fights this year. So we'll have to see where that rematch could be held. And
if the timing doesn't work out because of the weather, is it MSG?
Yeah, MSG,
like number
Middle
one?
East. I mean, you know, you're
okay with Middle East for a fight like this? Because again, to your point, I was comparing it to 205. UFC 205 was Conor's debut at MSG. It was UFC's debut at MSG. And it was incredible. One of the greatest nights that I've ever witnessed. And why I thought this was maybe more special, I just said it before you came in, was 98% of the crowd was for Conor on that night. This is November of 2016. And it felt almost like a coronation. Saturday felt like a 50-50 or a 60-40 split. That's what made it so special. You go to Middle East, I know the money's great, but is the vibe the same?
It's like, I always have to take the criticism when we go somewhere like the Middle East, you know, taking the fight, what people will say, away from the fans. This is a prize fighting. This is the most dangerous, brutal sport you could ever imagine. And if I can generate 3-4 times the payday for a fighter that I could here, one, I would have no choice. I would have no say. They'd be taking it, right? Some different to others, Katie particularly, but still. You know, if we were in a situation where there was 3 or 4 times more money on the table for Katie Taylor to take that fight, I would be saying to her, the decision is yours, but you've got to take this opportunity. And that goes back to AJ against Ruiz. That goes back to particularly AJ against Usyk, which is a co-promotion where it's a split in revenue. Do you think that when I say to Alexander Usyk, you can make X to fight in London or 4X to fight in... What do you think he's going to say? It's prize fighting. I agree with all your points. In terms of that night out, that moment. So for me, I think it's Croke Park or probably back at MSG if we can't do the thing. But if there is a life-changing offer that comes in for this fight, we'd be mad not to consider it. And people sometimes don't understand that, Ariel, you know. And all I can ever be is as honest as I can be with a fight fan. And say, you have to understand, this isn't a game of tennis. This isn't 18 holes around a golf course. This is a fight that can change you forever, physically and mentally. Please let these fighters get what they deserve. And on Saturday, they got what they deserved. But there may be something out there that just changes their life, the next generation of their family, and the next generation of the family. And there's nothing more rewarding as a promoter when I see someone step away from the sport with all the spoils, with the legacy, with the belts, but financially secure to never have to worry again for them and their children. And that's what they may have an opportunity to do. But you tell me what I want.
No, of course.
And you know, I'm a fight fan.
How much do you think she could get, like, for this rematch?
I don't know. I mean, the fight's much bigger. You know, they just made 7 figures each.
What does she walk away with? Are you able to say?
No, not really.
All right, I don't know if that was the thing.
She did very well. Okay. And she'll make more money in a rematch. You know, that's...
Most of her career on Saturday?
What made...
Yeah, purse-wise. Was it the highest?
Of her career?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. By a long way.
And the rematch could be... Because I heard Jake say 8 figures for the...
Yeah, I mean, Jake says something. I mean, Jake actually said 10 figures in one interview. And I was trying to realise how much. Was that $1 billion? You know, I was like, wow, I hope you're paying. But look, again, we'd have to do a deal with Serrano. You know, she lost, but she'll think that she's worth more than she was in that fight. She may have a point. So it all depends what revenue can be generated. What's the gate now? How much will DAZN pay? You know, how much would a sponsorship be this time? Is there a site fee? And that's how we'll, you know, we won't just pull a number out the air like some people. Right. It'll be calculated.
It was magical stuff. It was an honor for me to be a small part of the build-up.
You're a great part of it, Ariel.
I appreciate it.
Gone down very well. A lot of people telling me.
Thank you. Yeah.
Got to bring you into the boxing world.
I'm not such a bad guy. When you meet with Dana later this week, tell him he's not such a bad guy.
Really? I'm pretty honest, and I like you.
I appreciate
I will be telling that, and I like him, and that's why I tell people he's a good guy. You can only take people as you find them.
I agree. Thank you for that. And what a night! I mean, you don't need me to say it, but I will never forget that. I will truly. I still feel like I'm on a high.
Yeah, but I bet you do as well. That's the greatest feeling for us, because that was presented by us.
Yeah, no, it's tremendous.
That's how we judge.
To you and everyone.
So, and that's how we'll build our fan base. That's how we'll get respect from fight fans for providing value for money and nights they'll never forget.
I'd never worked with DAZN before and never really met your team. Everyone's a gentleman. Everyone's a sweetheart. I mean, just a fantastic group of people. So I enjoyed every second of it. Thank you so much for coming in. And I guess we'll see you on Wednesday's show as well, since you're now a full-time co-host. We got to talk about Canelo and Bivol.
Cinco de Mayo weekend.
That's right. I mean, good luck out there.
Coming?
I'm not coming. No.
Really?
No.
I bet DAZN end up flying you out.
All right. We'll see about that. Can I go on the PJ?
Well, we'll see.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Paying.
Good luck. I'll pay for the petrol. Eddie Hearn, everyone. Appreciate you coming by.